workbook lesson in A Course in Miracles, Lesson 37, My Holiness Blesses the World. It begins with this idea contains the first glimmerings of your true function in the world or why you're here. So by function, it means your purpose, and the functions are two in our minds. One is the ego function, and or the functions given to us by the ego, and the other is the functions given to us by the Holy Spirit. What they both share is the function is to discover who we are, or to reinforce who we think we are, or to discover who we really are. So we've been developing this theme throughout these first lessons of the outer world being a function of our inner world as opposed to the other way around. And we've been developing lately this idea that that inner world begins with the concept of who we think we are. From that one concept, whether it's the ego or the holy self that's our true self, everything else flows from that. So, in this lesson here, we're talking about our true function, which is an attribute of us, is our holiness, is to bless us and to bless the world. So this idea contains the first glimmerings of your true function in the world or why you're here. Your purpose is to see the world through your own holiness. Notice the colloquial saying, seeing the world through rose-colored glasses, just refers to the fact that all perception is colored by something. Doesn't matter what, but it has a color to it that determines it. So, and the rose-colored glasses we're trying to develop here is a true coloring, which is our holiness, and we'll see everything through that. Thus are you and the world blessed together. No one loses, nothing is taken from anyone, everyone gains through your holy vision. It signifies the end of sacrifice because it offers everyone his full due, and he's entitled to everything because it's his birthright as a son of God. Now notice where we're moving here is we're moving to our relationships, where even though we're still in this lesson talking about objects as we look outside, when we do this lesson we're thinking about people inside, because it's relationships that is the end game of both the ego and the Holy Spirit, and its purpose for both of them is to try and convince us of who we are. So this whole idea here, this will end the sense of sacrifice because it offers everyone his full due, and he's entitled to everything because he's a birthright as a son of God, to its sense of abundance. So it goes on the next paragraph. There's no other way in which the idea of sacrifice can be removed from the world's thinking. Any other way of seeing will inevitably demand payment of someone or something. As a result, the perceiver will lose, nor will he have any idea of why he's losing. Yet is his wholeness restored to his awareness through your vision. Your holiness blesses him by asking nothing of him. Those who see themselves as whole make no demands. So this is a really key theme, and it's going to go throughout the rest of the course. The idea of payment, of someone losing, someone gaining, losing or gaining at someone else's loss. All of that is key. Maybe if we pull up from the text in chapter 4, section 2, the ego and false autonomy. Let's do a little reading in there, and that might be helpful with this lesson as we try and bring course theory into our practice. So this is in paragraph 6 in section 2, the ego and false autonomy. Only those who have a real sense and lasting sense of abundance can be charitable. This is obvious when you consider what is involved. To the ego, to give anything implies that you will have to do without it. When you associate giving with sacrifice, you give only because you believe that you're somehow getting something better and can therefore do without the thing you give. Giving to get is the inescapable law of the ego, which always evaluates itself in relation to other egos. It's therefore continually preoccupied with the belief in scarcity that gave rise to it. Okay, so this was the first thing that happened when we made up the ego is this our sense of lack, because the ego was made up to substitute for love, to substitute for our wholeness. So we automatically have a sense of lack when we're coming from the ego, and so it has to be fulfilled. And so it's talking about this giving to get, which inevitably has a sense of sacrifice to it, a sense of deprivation to it, is what is how the ego does its giving. Whereas, as it says at the beginning here, when you truly feel abundant, when you know that you're whole, when you know that you need nothing, that's when you can be truly charitable. And charitable, again, in the text, means the ability to see yourself or someone else as beyond their present accomplishments, right? You're transcending time. You're seeing beyond what they seem to be. That's the idea of charity. So the idea of wholeness and abundance um, is the standpoint from which we'll be able to truly give without a sense of sacrifice, and not this giving to get. That's the source of all of our miseries in all of our relationships. We give something because we want to get something else. It's this getting thing, and at the basis of that idea of getting is inherent in that is scarcity and lack. Um, that's why we're doing it. So it reinforces that. Um, so again, in 6, it's therefore continually preoccupied with the belief in scarcity that gave rise to it. Its whole perception of other egos as real is only an attempt to convince itself that it is real. So there's this whole idea of now, when the ego was made, it keeps honing its image by comparison to other egos. That's how it makes itself seem to be real, is in this comparison. So self-esteem in ego terms means nothing more than the ego has deluded itself into accepting its reality and is therefore temporarily less predatory. This self-esteem is always vulnerable to stress, a term which refers to any perceived threat to the ego's existence. Okay, so let's just go down the next paragraph um, to reinforce this. So the ego literally lives by comparisons. Equality is beyond its grasp, and that's what we're looking for in this sense of abundant holiness, holy self, is equal. I'm equal to everyone around me, and they're equal to me. And so there's not this fight and clash of egos getting to get, trying to make it fair, trying to make it balanced all the time. It's just a sense of abundance and equality. The ego never gives out of abundance because it was made as a substitute for it, right? That's the whole idea of lack was the result of this sense of the separation. That is why the concept of getting arose in the ego's thought system. Appetites are getting mechanisms representing the ego's need to confirm itself. So this is really important, and it goes throughout the rest of the course, especially in the Song of Prayer, that deep in our mind, it's not even the things that we want. What's really going on is by thinking we have those unfulfilled wants and then seeking to get them is really just a game that's being played in the mind to make the ego real. That's what's really behind it. This is as true of body appetites as the so-called higher needs, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, self-actualization, all that. Body appetites are not physical in origin. The ego regards the body as its home and tries to satisfy itself through the body. But the idea that this is possible is a decision of the mind which has become completely confused about what is really possible. Okay, so that's the situation with the ego. That's what, in this lesson, what we're trying to reverse is that through our perception of holiness and abundant self will be a perception of equality between us and everyone else. That's our function in the world. Um, okay, there's no other way, go over this again. There's no other way in which the idea of sacrifice can be removed from the world's thinking. Any other way of seeing will inevitably demand payment of someone or something. And then there's a sense of loss when we're not aware of what's going on. And so these exercises is to bring that awareness up inside of ourselves and share that with someone else. So your holiness blesses him by asking nothing of him. That's the key to love here, is that true love asks for nothing because it knows it's abundant. True love is unconditional, so there's nothing you want or need from anyone else. That's the real key to being a loving self here, is not asking for anything. It doesn't mean we won't have the normal interactions, but it's be guided by the Holy Spirit, and the Holy Spirit will work it out. So everybody's genuine needs on this level, or our real need of remembering self, everyone's needs will be actually met. If those needs are defined by the Holy Spirit, and He's the one who meets them, then there's no sense of lack or dissatisfaction or conflict. Okay. Those who see themselves as whole make no demands. All right. So your holiness is the salvation of the world. It lets you teach the world that it is one with you, not by preaching to it, not by telling it anything, but merely by your quiet recognition that in your holiness are all things blessed along with you. So this is really important. We're being missionaries, we're being teachers, we're demonstrating something, but it really isn't in our words or the preaching, it's just our life itself. And that's very loving. That allows everybody their freedom. And there's this beautiful thing about the Course is that our only job is to make ourselves truly okay. When we're truly okay through the acceptance of forgiveness, miracle, salvation, the holy instant, awareness of our holiness, that will automatically bless everyone else. And that's all we need to do, is make ourselves okay. It's a very loving thing. Okay, so now we get to the practice instructions. Today's 4 longer exercise periods, each to involve 3 to 5 minutes of practice, begin with a repetition of the idea for today, followed by a minute or so of looking about you as you apply the idea to whatever you see. All right, this should be very familiar. My holiness blesses the chair, window, body. And then this other phase of the practice is close your eyes and apply the idea to any person who occurs to you using their name and saying, my holiness blesses you, whoever that person is. And be very specific. That will be very powerful to use the name itself. So we're bringing this down to something very concrete. Yeah, and the concreteness is what makes it seem vivid to us. That's why we take particular objects. It makes this very concrete to us, very real. So you may continue the practice period with your eyes closed. You may open your eyes again and apply the idea for today to your outer world if you so desire. You may alternate between applying the idea to what you see around you and to those who are in your thoughts, or you may use any combination of these 2 phases of application that you prefer. The practice period should conclude with a repetition of the ideas with your eyes closed and another following immediately with your eyes open. Okay, so this is, as these lessons develop, he speaks in general terms, and then it's going to be, a lot's going to be left to the particular individual, how they practice, as long as they follow the general structure. So whatever works for you in this suggestion, that's what he's saying to do. All right, so now we get into the frequent reminders, the other leg of practice. We've been referring to. The shorter exercises consist of repeating the idea as often as you can. It's particularly helpful to apply it silently to anyone you meet, using his name as you do so. That's really key, right? So as often as we're willing to do this, we can just, when we're interacting with people, we can use this idea, my holiness blesses you, blank, using the name. And then here's this other idea of response to temptation, or practice on the fly when we're upset. It's essential to use the idea if anyone seems to cause an adverse reaction in you. So it's as soon as that happens, then we should apply this idea to it. Offer him the blessing of your holiness immediately, that you may learn to keep it in your own awareness. And then we'll have that sense of freedom and abundance, and we'll actually be able to be truly charitable. Okay, thanks. That's it for today.